Welcome, everyone, to another episode of From the Mount, a podcast from the campus of Mount Perrin Christian School, and I will be your host for today's episode. I am Steve Kyle, back with me in studio, and not just as co-host really today, just as a co-host, but as an expert on what we're going to be talking about today, Miss Viola Lussier.
Hello, everyone.
Back with us, and then joining us as a guest and also expert, first time on our podcast, but we have our middle school counselor, Melissa Troskie. Melissa, welcome.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here.
Great. Well, ladies, I'm going to be turning almost all of this over to you, and I think the most important, or one of the most important things we do for our listeners that are listening today, because we are focusing on mental health. This is a mental health edition of our podcast. And I want our listening audience to understand who they're listening to. So Viola, I know you're on this podcast a lot, and so people do know about you. But in case this is the first time or what people are listening to, kind of give us your counseling background, your expertise, and then we'll hear from Melissa.
Love it. So my name is Viola Lussier. I am Director of Counseling, and I am also one of the high school counselors. I serve a specific alphabet in high school, H through O, so I have 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. And I have been in school counseling for 15, going on 16 years, and I've been at Mount Perrin for 9 years. Absolutely love what I do from the mental health aspect, helping kids with how they feel, how their actions impact what they're doing, all the way to the college counseling part. It's my favorite thing, and I don't think I would be doing anything else except for maybe I could also be Joanna Gaines, but here. That's the only other thing I'd want to do other than I get to do this every day.
And then one last, you are a mom of two amazing girls.
I am.
So I think if I'm a listener, that's important to me, that you're a mom and you've got teenagers, and so you know what it's like.
I'm on the front line with you right now in the fire. Yes.
Great. And Melissa, you're brand new, of course, to our community, but certainly to our podcast. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hi. Well, I am new, this year to Mount Perrin Christian School. I serve the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. It's been an absolute blessing just walking alongside them and through their journeys, ups and downs. I feel like I've gotten to know a lot of them already and the parents, and just dive right in. I also have 2 middle schoolers myself, 6th grade and 7th grade, and then I have a 3rd grader here. A little bit background, I went to school to be a play therapist. So I'm a licensed professional counselor and then also a licensed marriage and family therapist. And so I have a background in working with families and then also with groups and individuals. My main heart is working with littles. When I was in private practice, I worked in private practice for about 15 years, and I've worked in a variety of other environments through DFACs in church background, community counseling centers, in-home teaching, and it's just been a real blessing being here inside the schools now and walking alongside these students.
Yeah, and you actually went back and got an add-on, right, for your school counseling?
I did. I went to Richmond Graduate University and got my degree in marriage and family therapy with a specialization in children and adolescents, and then went on to become a play therapist. And then I got my EDS, my specialist degree in professional school counseling from the University of Georgia.
I love it.
Wow. So as you can tell, we get 2 experts in studio with me. I just literally am going to ask questions today, which is great. I'm going to kick off with a big one, because if I'm a parent listening, this is really important to me. So because I'm going to relate in some of these areas, but what are the common concerns that school counselors are seeing at your level? So as you guys consider, and Viola, I know you focus on high school in that area. Melissa, I know you're in the middle school, but I know you see cross things in what you do. So what are these issues we're seeing in our schools?
I mean, I definitely think we can have an overarching theme of anxiety and then maybe some depression, a little bit of the ADHD, those types of things. But if you want to know what it's like being a counselor, of course, it's the friend issue. Mm-hmm. It's the academic issue of just like am I doing enough? Am I enough? And I just see a lot of, they're so afraid to fail. They're so afraid to try something because they're nervous they're not going to do it well. They don't want to know what other people think of them. So it's almost this withdrawal because they want to protect themselves. It's self-preservation of like, if I don't put myself out there, then I don't have to deal with the ramifications of what happens if it doesn't pan out the way that I want. So that's kind of what I see in high school land. And I don't know, tell me what you see in middle school land.
I'm seeing a lot of that as well in middle school land. There is a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of this performance-based anxiety of this rigid thoughts of, I've got to do this right. If I'm going to try this new activity, I've got to be really good at it. I've got to get those A's. And a lot of this is just self-induced, that they're putting these pressures on themselves. I get a lot of calls from parents of, I'm not really sure what's going on. We support him or her, but we're not sure where these rigid thoughts are coming from and these perfectionistic tendencies. And that stems a lot from anxiety. And there's also a lot of depression as well. We're seeing a lot of students that are wondering when they come into middle school, like, who am I? They're going through developmentally appropriate identity formation. Who am I? Where do I fit in? The friends I had in 4th and 5th grade maybe aren't the kind of group, we don't have as much in common anymore. And so now, where do I go? What are my God-given talents? It's just a time of exploration.
Right. So when you actually break down the word anxiety, it is that worrisome, that fear, that just, it's that nagging, right?
Yes.
Talk to me about the difference between anxiety versus just, I'm stressed or good stress, right?
Absolutely.
There's
eustress. That's a very good point that you bring up. That good stress, the eustress, it could be getting ready for homecoming or a game, getting ready for a trip with friends. That feeling that we get, it's a lot that we have going on, but it's excitement, and it helps get us ready gives us that energy to get up and get going. When it becomes problematic is what I like to call the worry brain. It's when we start having these thoughts in our head that we get fixated on, the what ifs. We all have this. Adults, it is completely normal. We're going to have worry thoughts. It goes into more anxiety land when we fixate on them. It's not just a cognitive process that we're going through, but now it's a physiological process in our bodies where then we are starting to feel it in us. And for a lot of middle school students, it comes about with stomach aches. It comes about with headaches. It comes about with their heart might be racing. And it has academic, physical, social repercussions to it. It's impacting them in a lot of ways.
So that actually brings some of the question that I was thinking about is, how, if you have a child at home and how is anxiety presenting itself? And you brought up something really great, is that a lot of times it is completely physical.
Yes.
I cannot tell you the amount of kids who have migraines or headaches, stomach issues, things like that, or parents who are constantly getting phone calls where I had one where in lower school, I one day was like, do you need a hug every day? Are you not getting enough attention? Because she just loved going to the nurse. That was like her favorite thing.
Yes.
I mean, it became like her third friend. And I'm like, whoa. She's got a job she's got to do. So we've got to really get to the root of it. So it does present in that physical sense. The other thing that's huge, sleep.
Yes.
Huge.
Absolutely.
And people don't get that. I mean, because they're like, well, I put him upstairs and he must go to sleep. No, there are a lot of kids who are ruminating at night.
Yes, absolutely.
And they're up worrying.
You must have been in my office this morning.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, no. Well, and I don't know if y'all do that as adults, but there are times where I'm like, am I going to, you're giving the face. You're giving the face like that was me yesterday.
Yeah, last night. How about that?
Well, so it's just constantly thinking.
Well, and I'll just bring this up because I want to throw this out there with this anxiety. Of course, having two daughters myself, how much of this, because the question is, where is it coming from? How much of it, as I read in lots of literature, they're attributing a significant portion of this to cell phone usage. Is that a big issue in presenting this new level of anxiety? Do you guys see that? In what I'm reading, they're saying that what kids today have that we didn't, or at least I did not have growing up, is, of course, this whole comparison thing. The thing that I stress about is I'm not good enough, because I didn't know what my neighbor was doing or what the rest of the world was doing if I didn't see them. But today, everybody's highlight reels are posted. Yeah. Do you guys see that at the same thing? Is that not the case? Is that just one kind of, I don't want to say excuse, but something people are using that's creating these levels of anxiety?
So I would actually answer that it is a societal thing, but through social media, like what you're talking about, the highlight reels, those things are being highlighted. So for example, it is right now, we're dealing with this with college counseling. There are schools where they have historically been, relatively easy to get into, and they're out-of-state schools, and you didn't have to have very much rigor, and you could have decent grades, good test scores. Well, now that more and more students are wanting this college experience, those people now have upped their standards for admissions, now leaving behind a bunch of people. So now there's this scramble of like, I've got to get this many APs, I've got to get this GPA, I've got to get this test score. Almost from middle school going into high school, there's this pressure coming from people because they want the name, or we are 3-time blah, blah, blah graduates, and, this is the standard. Everybody goes to this school in our house. Well, everything has gone up significantly more than what it even was 2-3 years ago. So now we've just created this stress storm. And then people are stuck in the stress storm,
Gotcha.
And so I do think that it's not something that social media has created, but I think the fact that you see so-and-so from this other school that you guys went to middle school together, and now you see them and their kid is going and doing this thing, you're just like, well, why not my kid? And then you're putting that stress. And a lot of parents are like, we don't ever say anything. Sometimes it's not about saying stuff. Sometimes it's in the tone that you say it, or when you talk about things like, well, yeah, I noticed that, my second cousin, they have a kid who went to Duke and Harvard. Then kids are inferring, well, are you saying that because I should go to Duke or Harvard? Yeah. So it's those types of things where it's all this external stuff. It really is the world.
Sure.
The world is dictating, and then the technology is highlighting the issues. I don't know if that's how you feel.
Yeah, no, you brought up some really good points. And especially in middle school world, where they are more so along that developmentally of, okay, now who am I as a student? Who am I as a friend? Who am I as an athlete? I heard it just phrased so well with this analogy that developmentally, when you leave lower school and you start heading on towards middle school and high school, parenting changes a little bit, where if you see your teenager, your middle schooler, as a country, so we'll say the United States of America, and then each one of those states will represent a different facet of their lives. So you have their friendship, okay? Like Georgia could represent like friends, who they're friends with, and then Florida is the activities that they do, and Tennessee is how they study. Another state could be how they wear their hair. Another state is their skin. You can go on and on and on about all these different formations that they're going through developmentally, and that they are starting to see their parents as troops occupying these states. And developmentally, then, it's our role as parents to slowly be retreating out of those states so that they can then really struggle and even fail in a safe environment that we provide at Mount Perrin, and then that families provide at home, to be able to try on these different roles. If I fail on my test because I've started trying a new strategy, it's okay. But a lot of them don't feel that way, that it's okay. It then becomes not just a thought, but it becomes who they are. If I failed this test, so I'm a failure. Versus it's very developmentally normal to be trying out different ways of studying,
Right, that
interacting
growth
with friends,
mindset.
activities, but it can bring about anxiety if you have a child that's more perfectionistic with temperament. Temperament plays a huge role in it as well. Parents' mental health play a role in it. If a parent, a mom or dad caregiver is depressed, you have a 2 to 5% likelihood that increase for your children. And that is the same for anxiety as well.
I was going to say, when you bring that part up about the parent stuff, as a parent, when they get in the car and you just want to rapid fire machine gun questions, how was it? What'd you eat? Did you have this? Oh, well, what did so-and-so say? How does this work? What's going on? Do you have homework? Do you have this? Do you have that? And all they're thinking is, I've been on all day. I'm exhausted. And then you as a parent take it personally because you're just thinking like, how come they don't want to be with me? And it's just, they don't want to be with anyone. It's not you. It's everything that's going on right now. So just constructive ways to kind of give them that space to be who they are.
Absolutely.
So with that being said, if we do think, we talked about the physical manifestations of anxiety. What are some other, you mentioned academics, so talk a little bit more about what do you see in the academics?
Yeah, so what I'm seeing in the academics is a student might study and feel like they know the material. They might even study with a parent. I might have a parent contact me after a test and be like, hey, I knew that he or she knew this information. They get to the test and they just blank. Because when we're in that anxiety, high arousal states, when our sympathetic nervous system is kicking into gear, we go into fight or flight, freeze or faint mode. And for that student, when they are in that environment, when it's time to perform, even though all the information might be in their brain, they have it all, they did it all. But when it comes time to perform, they go into that freeze state or that flee state where they just want to leave. They have to go to the bathroom a lot.
Right.
And unfortunately, then they don't perform very well. And then they get those test grade back and it just confirms that belief of, see, I'm not good at this.
Right.
I can't do this. And then what comes after that, the thought process is, I can't go and talk to my teacher about it because he or she will see me as a failure. And that's just unbearable. And that's not reality. The teacher wants to be their help, but that rational part of their brain has turned off.
Or they don't like me.
Yes,
I hear that a lot, yeah.
Absolutely. Or they fear maybe how their parents are going to perceive them when they come home and tell them.
Right.
Like, because they so want to impress their parents. They so want them to be proud of them, of look what I did. And then they're just scared of what's going to happen.
Well, and it's super common too, when you are anxious, a lot of times you're not able to concentrate.
Yes.
So I've had some students where it presents almost like ADHD. You can't concentrate, you can't focus on something, you're not doing well on things, you're losing stuff. But in reality, it was the anxiety part. So once we got the anxiety part under control, all those other symptoms kind of went away.
That's right.
And then I know in high school land, it becomes sometimes too, what we're looking for is like the withdrawal, or the avoidance. Like,
Yes.
oh, my kid, all he wants to do is just video game. He doesn't want to actually do his stuff. Or the social withdrawal is huge.
Yes.
And then you eventually end up worrying about, should we, if we see anything with like substances or self-harm.
Yep.
So if we have that type of situation and we have a parent who is like, oh, wow, this is really resonating with me right now, what do you think our next step should be as a parent?
Yes, if you're in that place where you're suspecting that there could be anxiety or depression, I would say the next step is to talk to the counselor. Reach out to the teachers. We can work together and figure out, okay, is this developmentally normal? I see it a lot like when you're at the beach with your kids. They're in the ocean, they're pretty close by, they look safe. They're still getting, taken over by the waves from time to time and get back up. Sometimes, though, the riptide takes them out a little bit further, and we need a little bit more support as parents to kind of work together to bring our kid back to us. And so by calling on your team, and we are all a team together, we're your community. And so contacting the counselor and just see kind of what's going on. Another good step would be to contact the pediatrician.
Yes.
And see, is this developmentally appropriate?
Right.
Sometimes they can do screeners and then can provide referrals for going forwards if we need to see another counselor or have an evaluation done. And then we will all continue to work together to see what's going on.
In the words of what TSA, if you see something, say something.
Yes.
So
sure.
I know as a parent, sometimes you want to kind of hold your cards close because you don't want to tell everyone kind of what's going on. And telling us does not tell everyone what's going on.
Yeah.
So please, 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 if you feel like your child falls underneath this thing that we've talked about today, please do not hesitate to reach out, because that's exactly what we're here for. And we're here to help kind of with those next steps. You're right. Validation or, causation.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like, what's causing it? What are we seeing at school? What are y'all seeing at home? Sometimes you guys get two different kids. You are like, they're terror at home, and we're like, wow, they're absolutely amazing here. Or sometimes it's flip-flopped, So just those are the biggest things, is just if you see something, say something, and don't hesitate to reach out, because we're definitely here to help.
And we can provide resources as well. There's so much out there. There's just great resources.
It's good. I feel better just talking.
you?
Yeah, having two counselors in here feels better. And of course, we always look at, all the things I think, when you consider things like, one, we have, our kids are image bearers of God. That God has uniquely created and designed them, even with the, hey, I have a tendency for anxiety, or I struggle in certain areas, because I even do. And those aren't the areas to look at and go, something's wrong with me. No, that's the way God made you. And so I think, it's focusing though when it comes to, but when it consumes us, 1 Peter 5 says, hey, let's cast our cares on him. But it isn't just that. You still, a lot of times, well, I'm praying about it. Well, but we also have really great counselors. Make sure you're coming in and getting. God has also gifted lots of people to provide help. And so, yes, we want to make sure we're in prayer, certainly. And Matthew 6:33 reminds us that if we seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, but then it goes on to say, if you keep reading, and don't worry about tomorrow.
Right.
And so I think the big foundation is, and I know here, that's why I love at Mount Paran, your guidance counselors are approaching, you guys are approaching this lens of Scripture. And how awesome is it that you're giving them the most unbelievable advice, but you're also spending this. We pray for our kids here.
We do.
And hopefully if you're listening, you're praying for your kids there too. So a great episode, great helpful information. There will be more podcasts on mental health. So be looking and listening for those. But Viola, Melissa, thank you guys for coming on.
Thank you.
I'm glad you guys have you. And thank you for listening to another episode of From the Mount.